pilgrim journey. Lord, I want Jesus to walk with me.
So I'm going to do something a little bit different today. In my research over the past week around the Wilmington 10, I discovered a beautiful piece of writing that I would like to share with you. A piece of writing that actually speaks with way more authority than I do on the matter, and I think you'll find it very powerful. Summoning Strength Through Struggle, written by Mr. Wayne Moore. May I, sir? This brought me to tears, so I would like to share it. Reaffirmed. That's what I felt deep within, where even the January cold that stalked the National Mall could not touch me as I stood there on Inauguration Day. For so long, frustration and disappointment had taken up residence in the hot earthen red marrow of my bones. I reflected on how Michelle Obama must have felt in her husband's maiden run for the White House when she said, for the first time in my adult life, I am proud of my country. On that mall, with so many others there to witness Barack H. Obama, a black man like me, sworn in for his second term as our nation's president, I felt overwhelmed. I felt like I belonged there. It wasn't just the day's flowery prose and poetry, its soaring songs, festive parades, and fluttering flags. It was, for me, the culmination of a realization that the country I'd always loved more than it loved me had done right by me, and along the way, the cause of justice. In the last hours of 2012, outgoing North Carolina Governor Beverly Perdue issued and signed a pardon of innocence for the Wilmington 10. I was among 9 black men and 1 white woman who were unjustly charged and convicted for the 1971 firebombing of a grocery store in my hometown of Wilmington, North Carolina, during a racially tense time following the closing of the city's only black high school. At the time, I was a teenage activist who only wanted, like all 10 of us, to see black students treated with some degree of respect and consideration. For our efforts, the Wilmington 10 were sentenced to a total of more than 280 years in prison. 280 years in prison. Our case generated widespread condemnation and support, especially following the recantation of the prosecution's 3-star witnesses. 60 U.S. congressmen filed friend of the court briefs with the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, demanding that it overturn our conviction. The Justice Department found widespread misconduct on the part of the prosecutors. President Jimmy Carter even spoke up after Amnesty International declared us political prisoners in 1977. In 1980, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals finally overturned our convictions. We were all released from prison. Released, but not exonerated. I was free of prison life, of physical bondage, but I hardly felt free, because every day we spent in North Carolina, we carried the gorilla of injustice on our backs. That heavy weight dogged us for years, following 4 of us to all too early graves, and prompting me to try to start a new life in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where I live and work as an electrician. But I wasn't thinking about the great wrong done to us as I stood at the inauguration, which happened to fall on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and the 150th anniversary year of the Emancipation Proclamation. I was thinking, as I do now during Black History Month, of all the triumphant warriors that came before me. I thought of the strength and courage of Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Nat Turner, Toussaint Louverture, Malcolm X, and Dr. King. I thought of Barack Obama. Being in Washington on that day was an indescribable experience, heavy with the weight of the struggles Black, brown, yellow, and red people have waged since we all first set foot on American shores. I gave such heartfelt thanks that I could be free, vindicated, and alive to see a Black man stand on the Capitol steps, built by slave labor, and take the oath of the land's highest office in the same vein as George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. I am overjoyed to have received the pardon after 40 years of immense pain trying to live without it. However, my greatest joy is found not so much in the fact that I have been exonerated from any culpability in the case, but in the truth that I was able to summon strength through struggle from all of those triumphant warriors who live within me. My greatest wish is that these kinds of injustices continue to be exposed so that what happened to the Wilmington 10 won't continue to destroy the hopeful dreams of young Black folks, any folks for that matter. A pardon can't give me back my life. It does, though, officially bestow upon me the title of triumphant warrior. Yes, sir, it does. Earlier that day in D.C., I found myself staring up at the great granite likeness of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., memorialized on the mall as he should be. I couldn't help but think that this tribute was to the same Dr. King who just a little more than 40 years ago was the subject of jeers and vilification and hatred. This great monument stood before me in all its majesty, honoring the same man for whom I had heard blaring horns of cars filled with whites, cheering his assassination as I strolled through the streets of Wilmington on that awful day in 1968. But staring up at the stone dreamer on his January holiday, I wondered if there wasn't a lesson in his turnabout for me, for the remaining 6 members of the Wilmington 10. Will history be as kind to us? Could those who waterboarded Lady Justice and the many who chose to look the other way, to lock us away, could they ever understand that we were guilty of nothing more than acting like Americans? I certainly hope so, because if they do, they too will likely find their love and faith in this nation is reaffirmed. It feels so
This church has been wonderful to me. They have been the epitome of what struggle is all about. And something I was reminded during prayer time, that all of us have struggles. Just because you're here honoring me, some of you need to be honored for the way you've overcome your own struggles. And that's what it's all about. Struggle is directly related to faith.
I've never done that where I had a sermon prepared and then just put it aside. Your words were more powerful and more important. I think it's our temptation, it's the temptation of Christ, right, today, that our temptation is to set aside this story as historically past. It's my temptation as a white woman in 2013 to kind of look back with idle curiosity about what happened to the Wilmington 10. But if I am honest, I have to embrace this story as my story. It's not my experience, but it is my story. Our story. We are tempted to find ways out of it. We rationalize ways to not be intimately connected to what happened. And if these aren't our stories, Mr. Moore's greatest hope that injustices like these will be uncovered and that no more black, red, yellow, white lives will be destroyed, will never be fully realized. So I thank you, Mr. Moore, for inviting me into my story. And I hope that we all have the faith and the perseverance and the honesty and sincerity to continue embracing our story so that we can change the story. Amen. December 31st, 2012, Governor Beverly Perdue issued pardons for the 10 people charged and convicted in 1971 of firebombing and conspiracy. She righted a long-standing wrong. Governor Perdue did. She did the right thing. She righted a long-standing wrong, one of countless wrongs that had happened during the civil rights movement. But don't misunderstand me when I say this. She didn't wake up on December 30th thinking, hey, there is this injustice that I think I need to undo. 4 years ago, Mr. Moore coordinated a commemoration, 40-year commemoration of the Wilmington 10, and out of that gathering came a whole movement for pardon. The National Newspaper Publishers Association, they formed a group called the Innocence Project for the Wilmington 10, and there was a mass movement in the black press. There were petitions signed and demonstrations happening and letter writing campaigns. They took to Governor Perdue's staff for 150,000 signatures asking for pardon. It had been 1980, they had been forgiven or overturned the conviction, but never exonerated. It took 40 years of struggle, of movement, of faithful people not forgetting the story to achieve that pardon. So Governor Perdue did the right thing, but it was long overdue. And so we stand here in this moment, celebrating the gift of exoneration and recognizing that our work is not yet
To walk
For a country that has elected an African American to sit in the Oval Office of a White House that was once built by slaves.
We lift up the flower of our hope, O God.
For the ability of the human heart to repent when it recognizes itself in another.
We lift up the flower of our compassion, O God.
For the brave warriors of justice who have been threatened at the lunch counters, faced snarling police dogs and crushing fire hoses, and given up their lives in order to set freedom free.
We lift up the flower of our strength, O God.
For the fierce vision of our oneness that refuses to let us go.
We lift up the flower of our resolve, O God.
And
As we cast these flowers into the troubled water of our times, transforming one, hear our plea that just as the water nourishes the delicate petals, so too may the power of your possibilities nourish our hearts, and through us blossom into a future of beauty, justice, and peace.